The Dominion is remembered as the most dangerous enemy the Federation ever faced, but on screen it was defeated by a coalition that never matched its fleet strength. The Borg destroyed entire civilizations, yet they were stopped repeatedly by ships that should not have survived first contact. Power in Star Trek is almost always discussed in terms of weapon yields, territory controlled, and ships fielded, but canon demonstrates that these metrics consistently fail to predict who endures and who collapses. The factions that appear unstoppable are often the most fragile, and the ones dismissed as weak outlast empires that seemed invincible. Power in Star Trek is typically measured in ship counts, weapon yields, and square parsecs controlled. The Dominion is feared for its numerical superiority. The Borg are legendary for their adaptive resilience. The Federation is celebrated for its diplomatic reach, but canon does not support the idea that these metrics tell the whole story. The Dominion was fought to exhaustion by a coalition that never matched its fleet strength. The Borg were stopped repeatedly by ships that should not have survived first contact. The Federation has been outgunned in nearly every major conflict it has entered, yet it persists where others collapse. The contradiction is structural. Factions that appear dominant on the surface often prove brittle under prolonged pressure. Factions that seem weaker on paper endure crises that should have destroyed them. Power is not a static resource, it is a system. Economic resilience determines how long a faction can sustain losses. Ideological cohesion determines whether its population will fight or fracture. Institutional flexibility determines whether it can adapt to surprise. The factions that rank highest are not always the ones with the largest fleets. They are the ones whose systems can absorb catastrophic failure and continue to function. This is not about who wins individual battles. It is about who remains standing when the war is over. The official rankings are incomplete because they ignore the structure beneath the spectacle. The Federation is often dismissed as idealistic and militarily naive. On screen, it loses ships constantly. The Defiant class was designed specifically because Starfleet admitted it could not fight the Borg with exploratory vessels. The Galaxy class was intended as a mobile city, not a warship, and it showed. In the best of both worlds, a single Borg cube destroyed 39 ships at Wolf 359 inches minutes. The Federation should have collapsed. It did not. In the Dominion War, Starfleet lost entire fleets in engagements like the First Battle of Chintoka and Operation Return, yet it continued to field replacement ships faster than the Dominion could destroy them. The explanation is not magical, it is economic. The Federation's power is rooted in its industrial base. Earth, Vulcan, Andoria, Tellar, and dozens of other core worlds maintain independent shipyards, research facilities, and resource networks. When one world is threatened, others compensate. The Dominion targeted this system directly. In A Time to Stand, Sisko's team destroys a Ketracel White facility specifically to disrupt Jem'Hadar cohesion. The Dominion understood that the Federation's strength was not centralized, it was distributed. Destroying one shipyard would not cripple production. Destroying one fleet would not break morale. The Federation could lose and lose and lose, and still rebuild. But this resilience has a cost. The Federation cannot afford to fight wars of annihilation. It cannot sustain prolonged occupations. It cannot commit to total war without abandoning the principles that hold its member worlds together. In the Pale Moonlight, Sisko resorts to deception and conspiracy to bring the Romulans into the war because the Federation was losing and could not win alone. The structure that allows the Federation to endure also limits how aggressively it can act. It can absorb damage, but it cannot escalate without risking internal fracture. The consequence is that the Federation ranks high not because it wins decisively, but because it is nearly impossible to destroy completely. The deeper issue is doctrinal. Starfleet trains its officers for exploration, diplomacy, and scientific research. Combat is treated as a secondary function. In The Wounded, Captain Maxwell goes rogue and begins attacking Cardassian ships because he believes they are rearming for war. He is correct, but Starfleet prioritizes diplomatic relations over preemptive action. Maxwell is relieved of command. The Cardassians continue rearming. Starfleet's institutional bias toward negotiation creates blind spots that hostile factions exploit repeatedly. But this same bias also creates strategic flexibility. Starfleet officers are trained to think independently. They are expected to solve problems without direct orders. In The Doomsday Machine, Commodore Decker takes command of the Enterprise and nearly destroys it, trying to fight a planet killer. Kirk retakes command and defeats the weapon using improvisation, not protocol. In Redemption, Picard navigates Klingon civil war by threading a blockade line with a tachyon detection grid, a tactic that has no precedent in Starfleet doctrine. The Federation's lack of rigid military hierarchy is a vulnerability in pitched battle, but it is an advantage in unconventional war. This adaptability is what allows the Federation to survive conflicts it should lose. The Dominion optimizes for control. The Borg optimize for assimilation. The Federation optimizes for problem-solving. When the problem changes, the Federation changes with it. The Klingon Empire is often framed as a warrior culture obsessed with honor and glory. On screen, this reputation is earned. Klingon ships engage at close range. Klingon captains prefer boarding actions over orbital bombardment. In The Way of the Warrior, the Klingon fleet attacks Deep Space Nine with the expectation that Starfleet will either surrender or be overrun. The Defiant holds them off. The Klingons withdraw. This is not a failure of courage, it is a failure of doctrine. The Klingon military is optimized for rapid strikes and decisive victories. It is not designed to fight extended campaigns where logistics and resource management determine the outcome. During the Dominion War, the Klingon Empire suffered catastrophic losses early in the conflict. In Tears of the Prophets, General Martok admits that the Klingon fleet is stretched beyond its operational limit. Entire houses lost their fleets. Entire sectors were left undefended. The Klingons were willing to fight. They were not able to sustain the fight. The deeper problem is political. The Klingon Empire is held together by a fragile balance of honor, fear, and personal loyalty to the Chancellor. When Gowron takes power, he consolidates authority by appealing to tradition. When he loses credibility, the great houses begin to fracture. In Tacking into the Wind, Worf kills Gowron to prevent the Empire from collapsing into civil war. The succession is handled cleanly, but the precedent is clear. The Klingon Empire is one leadership crisis away from disintegration at any given moment. Klingon power is high in short bursts. It is fragile over time. But the Klingon Empire has one structural advantage that offsets this fragility. Klingon culture valorizes death in battle. Losing a fleet does not demoralize the population. It inspires recruitment. In Soldiers of the Empire, Martok's crew is composed of veterans who survived catastrophic defeats. They are not broken, they are hardened. The Klingon willingness to accept casualties that would cripple other factions allows them to sustain offensive operations longer than their logistics should permit. The Empire bleeds, but it does not retreat. This creates a strategic paradox. The Klingon Empire cannot win prolonged wars, but it can delay defeat long enough for allies to compensate. During the Dominion War, the Klingons absorb losses that would destroy the Romulan fleet or shatter Cardassian morale. The Federation rebuilds. The Klingons hold. The combination is enough to grind the Dominion to a stalemate. The structure rewards aggressive action but punishes strategic patience. The Romulan Star Empire operates differently. It is secretive, paranoid, and methodical. On screen, the Romulans rarely commit to open conflict unless they have already ensured victory. In The Defector, a Romulan admiral defects to warn the Federation of an invasion plan, only for it to be revealed as a ruse to test Federation response times. In Inter Arma Enim Silent Leges, Section 31 manipulates Romulan internal politics to install a more favorable chairman of the Tal Shiar. The Romulans do not fight wars they are not certain they can win. They fight wars where the outcome has already been decided before the first shot is fired. This makes the Romulan Star Empire extraordinarily difficult to defeat, but it also makes them slow to act. The Tal Shiar's obsession with control creates institutional paralysis. In Improbable Cause, the Tal Shiar and the Obsidian Order launch a joint strike on the Founders' homeworld. It is a trap. Both intelligence agencies are gutted. The Romulans withdraw from the Dominion War for nearly 2 years because they cannot afford to commit without certainty. When they do finally enter the war in the Pale Moonlight, it is only because they believe the Dominion intends to invade them regardless. Romulan power is sustained through information dominance and preemptive positioning. But this structure is vulnerable to deception. The Romulans are powerful as long as they believe they have control. The moment they lose that belief, they retreat. The Romulan reliance on intelligence creates another weakness. The Tal Shiar is deeply embedded in every level of Romulan government. In Face of the Enemy, Troy is surgically altered to impersonate a Tal Shiar officer and smuggle dissidents out of Romulan space. The operation succeeds because the Tal Shiar is so powerful that even Romulan ship captains defer to its authority without question. But this same centralization means that compromising the Tal Shiar compromises the entire state. When the Obsidian Order mission fails, the Tal Shiar loses credibility. When the Tal Shiar loses credibility, the Senate loses the ability to enforce policy. The Romulans withdraw not because they are defeated militarily, but because their intelligence apparatus can no longer guarantee outcomes. The ranking reflects this. The Romulans are formidable in static deterrence. They are fragile when forced into reactive conflict. But the Romulans possess one asset that other factions lack: the cloaking device. On screen, Romulan warbirds can appear anywhere without warning. In the neutral zone, outposts along the Romulan border are destroyed with no evidence of how the attack was conducted. In the Pegasus, it is revealed that the Federation experimented with phasing cloaks, technology so advanced it violated treaty agreements. The Romulans never signed those treaties. They are not bound by Federation ethics or Klingon honor codes. They use every advantage available. The cloaking device is not just a tactical tool, it is a strategic deterrent. The Federation must maintain constant vigilance along the neutral zone because Romulan ships could cross at any time without detection. The Klingons cannot launch preemptive strikes because they do not know where the Romulan fleet is positioned. The Dominion cannot invade Romulan space without risking ambush from cloaked vessels. The cloak allows the Romulans to maintain strategic ambiguity even when their fleet strength is inferior. This is why the Romulans endure. They do not need the largest fleet. They need the ability to strike without warning and retreat without pursuit. The Cardassian Union represents a different model entirely. It is a centralized military state built on resource extraction and strict hierarchical control. On screen, Cardassia is introduced as an occupying power on Bajor. The occupation lasts 50 years. It is brutal, efficient, and ultimately unsustainable. In Duet, it is revealed that the Cardassians mined Bajor's resources to the point of diminishing returns, then withdrew because the planet was no longer profitable. This is not a retreat based on military defeat. It is a retreat based on economic collapse. The Cardassian military is competent. Gul Dukat is repeatedly shown as a capable strategist. The Galor-class warship is outmatched by Galaxy-class vessels, but remains dangerous in numbers. The problem is not capability, it is fragility. The Cardassian state cannot afford prolonged conflict. In The Die is Cast, the destruction of the Obsidian Order fleet leaves Cardassia vulnerable. In By Inferno's Light, the Dominion absorbs Cardassia as a client state, not through invasion, but through offering protection the Cardassians could no longer provide themselves. The alliance with the Dominion delays collapse, but does not prevent it. In What You Leave Behind, the Dominion massacres Cardassian cities when the population begins to rebel. Cardassia loses 800 million people in hours. The Cardassian Union does not survive the war as a major power. It ranks low not because its military was weak, but because its structure was dependent on continuous expansion and lacked the internal cohesion to endure loss. The lesson is clear. Centralized power is efficient in conquest. It is catastrophic in retreat. The Cardassian reliance on the Obsidian Order mirrors the Romulan reliance on the Tal Shiar, but with one critical difference. The Tal Shiar operates through information control and political manipulation. The Obsidian Order operates through fear and surveillance. In Improbable Cause, Garak reveals that the Obsidian Order monitors every Cardassian citizen, even those living off-world. The surveillance is so pervasive that dissent is nearly impossible. But this same surveillance creates paranoia. Cardassian officers do not trust each other. Cardassian politicians do not trust their subordinates. When the Obsidian Order is destroyed, the entire social contract collapses. The Cardassians have no mechanism for internal reform. The military government is the only government. When it fails, there is no fallback. The Dominion offers stability, but only at the cost of total subordination. The Cardassians accept because they have no other option. This is not an alliance. It is a surrender disguised as pragmatism. The Dominion operates on a completely different axis. It is not a faction built on ideology or economics. It is a control system. The founders are gods to the Vorta. The Vorta are overseers to the Jem'Hadar. The Jem'Hadar are genetically engineered soldiers addicted to Ketracel White. The entire structure is designed to eliminate the possibility of rebellion. On screen, this system works almost perfectly. Into the Death, a rogue group of Jem'Hadar attempts to access the Iconian Gateway. They are hunted down by loyalist Jem'Hadar. The founders do not need to intervene. The system enforces itself. But the Dominion has one structural vulnerability. It is dependent on the founders. In the search, Odo discovers that the founders are the changelings who rule the Dominion. In Broken Link, Odo is judged by the Great Link and temporarily made human. The Link is not invincible. In When It Rains, Section 31's morphogenic virus begins to kill the founders. The Dominion does not fracture immediately, but its strategic behavior shifts. The female changeling becomes erratic. She orders the execution of Cardassian civilians. She refuses to surrender, even when the war is lost. The virus does not destroy the Dominion militarily. It destroys the Dominion's ability to make rational strategic decisions. The Jem'Hadar continue to fight. The Vorta continue to obey. But the central intelligence guiding the system is compromised. In What You Leave Behind, the female changeling only agrees to surrender when Odo promises to cure the Great Link. The Dominion's power is absolute as long as the founders remain functional. The moment they are threatened, the entire structure becomes vulnerable to collapse. The ranking accounts for this. The Dominion is the most powerful faction in terms of raw military output, but it is also the most dependent on a single point of failure. Remove the founders, and the Dominion ceases to function. The Dominion's industrial capacity is nearly limitless. Ketracel White production facilities operate across the Gamma Quadrant. Jem'Hadar hatcheries produce soldiers faster than they can be deployed. Vorta clones ensure continuity of command even when field operatives are killed. In Rocks and Shoals, a Vorta named Kievan is stranded without White and negotiates with Sisko to kill his own Jem'Hadar soldiers. When Kievan dies, another clone is activated. The Dominion does not lose institutional knowledge. It does not suffer from command gaps. It is the most efficient war machine ever constructed. But efficiency is not resilience. The Dominion is optimized to expand and conquer. It is not optimized to negotiate or coexist. In Sacrifice of Angels, the Dominion nearly captures Deep Space Nine and secures the wormhole permanently. The Prophet intervention stops the reinforcement fleet, but the Dominion does not adapt its strategy. It continues to rely on overwhelming force rather than diplomatic outreach. The Dominion cannot absorb the Federation the way it absorbed Cardassia because the Federation will not submit to control. The Dominion war effort stalls not because it runs out of ships, but because it runs out of strategic options. It can destroy the Federation, but only by committing to total war. Total war risks destabilizing the Gamma Quadrant. The founders are pragmatic, they withdraw rather than overextend. But this pragmatism reveals the limit of Dominion power. It can dominate. It cannot integrate. It can conquer. It cannot coexist. The Borg Collective is often treated as the ultimate existential threat in Star Trek. On screen, the Borg are presented as unstoppable. In Q-Who, the Enterprise D is nearly destroyed by a single cube. In the best of both worlds, Starfleet's largest fleet is obliterated in one engagement. The Borg adapt to every weapon. They assimilate every technology. They have no government to destabilize, no economy to collapse, no ideology to corrupt. They are the perfect antagonist. But canon demonstrates that the Borg are not invincible. They are predictable. In I, Borg, the crew of the Enterprise D captures a Borg drone and considers using it to deliver a virus that would destroy the collective. The plan is abandoned on ethical grounds, but the vulnerability is proven. In Scorpion, species 8472 inflicts catastrophic losses on the Borg. Entire cubes are destroyed. The Borg cannot adapt. In Endgame, a single Federation starship equipped with future technology destroys a Borg transwarp hub and severely damages the Queen's vessel. The Borg's strength is also their weakness. They do not innovate, they assimilate. Every advancement they make is stolen from another species. When they encounter a threat they cannot assimilate, they have no other mechanism to respond. Species 8472 is immune to assimilation. The Borg lose. Admiral Janeway brings technology the Borg have never encountered. The Borg lose. The Borg are powerful, but only against threats they have already categorized and adapted to. Against novel threats, they are reactive, not proactive. The ranking reflects this. The Borg are devastating in individual encounters. They are strategically limited because they cannot create new solutions, only refine old ones. The Borg also suffer from a structural flaw that mirrors the Dominion. The collective is controlled by the Borg Queen. In First Contact, the Enterprise E crew destroys the Queen's vessel and halts the assimilation of Earth. The collective does not collapse, but it loses coordination. In Dark Frontier, 7 of 9 is recaptured by the Borg and learns that the Queen is not a single entity. Multiple Queens exist, but this redundancy does not eliminate the dependency. The collective requires central coordination. When the Queen is destroyed, the Borg revert to local tactical responses rather than strategic planning. This is why the Borg are feared but not dominant. They can destroy individual civilizations. They cannot conquer the galaxy. They have assimilated thousands of species, but they have not eliminated the Federation, the Klingons, or the Romulans. They adapt to known threats, but they cannot anticipate unknown ones. They are the most powerful reactive force in the galaxy, but they are a reactive force nonetheless. The pattern is becoming clear. Power is not about who has the most ships. It is about who can sustain losses, adapt to new threats, and maintain cohesion under pressure. The Breen Confederacy is rarely discussed in power rankings, but canon suggests they are more dangerous than they appear. The Breen do not engage in large-scale territorial expansion. They do not broadcast their capabilities. They operate through sudden, overwhelming strikes. In The Changing Face of Evil, a Breen fleet attacks Earth. They are not stopped. They inflict massive damage on Starfleet command and withdraw before reinforcements arrive. The attack is not an invasion, it is a demonstration. The Breen's most significant contribution to the Dominion War is technological. The Breen energy-dissipating weapon disables Federation and Romulan ships on first contact. In the Second Battle of Chin-Toka, an entire Allied fleet is crippled in minutes. The Defiant is destroyed. The weapon does not work on Klingon ships, but the Breen do not care. They have already proven their point. The Federation and Romulans scramble to develop countermeasures. The Klingons become the dominant fleet power temporarily, not because they improved, but because everyone else was neutralized. The Breen do not need to conquer territory. They need to prove that engaging them is too costly to be worth the effort. This is deterrence by demonstration. The Breen remain independent because they make it clear that attacking them will result in asymmetric retaliation. The Federation never invades Breen space. The Klingons never challenge them directly. The Romulans maintain a cautious distance. The Breen rank higher than their territorial footprint suggests because they have mastered strategic ambiguity. No one knows the full extent of their capabilities. No one wants to find out. The Breen also benefit from something other factions lack: isolation. Breen space is remote. It is not strategically positioned near major trade routes. It is not rich in dilithium or other critical resources. There is no incentive to invade. The Breen can operate as a spoiler faction, intervening in conflicts when it benefits them and withdrawing when it does not. They have no territorial ambitions because they do not need territory. They have strategic autonomy because no one considers them worth the cost of subjugation. This is power through irrelevance. The Breen are not ignored because they are weak. They are ignored because attacking them offers no tangible benefit. The energy-dissipating weapon proves they can inflict disproportionate damage if provoked. The raid on Earth proves they can strike core Federation worlds without warning. The Breen do not need to dominate the quadrant. They need to ensure that no one else can dominate them. The Tholian Assembly operates on a similar principle. They are isolationist, territorial, and xenophobic. On screen, Tholian space is treated as a no-go zone. In the Tholian web, the Enterprise is trapped in an interphasic rift near Tholian territory. The Tholians do not negotiate. They do not posture. They construct an energy web designed to trap and destroy the ship. Kirk escapes, but the message is clear. Tholian space is Tholian space. Violate it, and you will be eliminated. The Tholians do not seek expansion. They do not seek alliances. They do not seek trade. They seek isolation, and they enforce it absolutely. In a mirror, darkly, the Mirror Universe Tholians capture a Constitution-class starship and hold it for over a century. The ship is only recovered through theft, not negotiation. The Tholians do not explain. They do not compromise. The Tholian Assembly ranks low in terms of influence. It ranks high in terms of security. No major faction has successfully invaded Tholian space and held territory. The Tholians have never been conquered. This is not because they have the strongest fleet. It is because they have made it clear that the cost of conquest would exceed any possible gain. Power is not always about projection. Sometimes it is about making yourself too expensive to attack. The Tholians also demonstrate something other factions struggle with: consistency. Tholian policy does not change. Tholian borders do not shift. Tholian responses to incursions are predictable. This predictability is a form of deterrence. The Federation knows that crossing into Tholian space will result in immediate retaliation. The Klingons know that challenging the Tholians offers no honor and no gain. The Romulans know that the Tholians cannot be manipulated because they do not engage in diplomacy. The Tholians have optimized for a single objective: preservation of territorial integrity. They do not compete for influence. They do not seek allies. They have eliminated every variable except one: stay out or be destroyed. This clarity of purpose makes them nearly impossible to defeat, because defeating them requires committing to prolonged conflict with no strategic benefit. The Ferengi alliance is dismissed by nearly every other faction as irrelevant. They have no significant military. Their ships are designed for commerce, not combat. In the last outpost, a Ferengi marauder is outmaneuvered by the Enterprise D with minimal effort. The Ferengi are introduced as a disappointment, but canon demonstrates that the Ferengi are more resilient than almost any other faction in the Alpha Quadrant. The Ferengi survive because they do not fight wars. They buy their way out of conflicts. In the magnificent Ferengi, Quark negotiates directly with the Dominion to retrieve his mother. The Dominion agrees because the Ferengi are useful. They provide goods, services, and information. they are neutral enough to operate in contested space. In The Dogs of War, Grand Nagus Zek reforms Ferengi society by introducing progressive labor laws and women's rights. Rom becomes the new Grand Nagus. The Ferengi alliance does not collapse, it adapts. The Ferengi do not have economic resilience, they are economic resilience. Their entire society is built on capital flow, diversification, and risk management. When the Dominion War devastates the Alpha Quadrant, the Ferengi profit. When the Klingon Empire fractures, the Ferengi step in as intermediaries. When the Cardassian Union collapses, the Ferengi are the first to offer reconstruction contracts. The Ferengi rank low in military power. They rank high in institutional endurance. They will outlast factions that could obliterate them in open conflict because they never allow open conflict to occur. The Ferengi also possess one advantage that militaristic factions underestimate: information networks. Ferengi traders operate in every major power's territory. They buy and sell goods across borders that others cannot cross. In Body Parts, Quark's cousin Gyla is revealed to be an arms dealer who supplies weapons to multiple factions simultaneously. The Ferengi are embedded in the economies of the Federation, the Klingons, the Cardassians, and even the Romulans. They hear everything, they see everything, they trade everything. This makes the Ferengi nearly impossible to isolate. The Federation can blockade the Dominion, the Klingons can sever trade with the Romulans. But no one can sever trade with the Ferengi because the Ferengi are already inside every economy. They are not a rival power, they are a structural component of galactic commerce. Attacking the Ferengi would destabilize markets that every faction depends on. The Ferengi endure not through strength, but through indispensability. The deeper truth is that power rankings based on military strength alone are incomplete. The Federation, the Dominion, and the Borg appear at the top because they field the largest fleets and win the most visible battles. But the Ferengi, the Breen, and the Tholians endure because they have optimized for survival, not conquest. The factions that collapse fastest are the ones that rely on centralized control and continuous expansion. The Cardassian Union falls apart the moment it stops growing. The Klingon Empire fractures when its chancellor loses legitimacy. The Dominion is crippled when its leadership is compromised. These are not accidents. They are structural inevitabilities. The factions that persist are the ones with distributed power and adaptive institutions. The Federation can lose entire fleets and rebuild. The Ferengi can lose entire markets and adapt. The Breen can be attacked and retaliate without committing to prolonged war. The highest-ranked faction is not the one that wins every battle. It is the one that survives every war. But there is a final layer that conventional rankings miss entirely. Power is not only about survival, it is about influence. The Federation does not control the most territory. It does not field the largest fleet. But it shapes the behavior of every other faction in the quadrant. The Romulans enter the Dominion War because of Federation manipulation. The Klingons ally with the Federation because isolation would leave them vulnerable. Even the Dominion negotiates with the Federation at the end of the war, not because the Federation won militarily, but because the Federation represented a coalition that could not be destroyed. This is the mechanism that conventional rankings ignore. Military power is visible, institutional power is not. The factions that rank highest are not always the ones with the most ships. They are the ones that force other factions to make decisions around them. The Federation's true power is not its fleet. It is its ability to build coalitions. In Sacrifice of Angels, the Federation retakes Deep Space Nine not through superior firepower, but through coordinated action with the Klingons and the intervention of the Prophets. In What You Leave Behind, the Federation leads a coalition that includes the Klingons, the Romulans, and even Cardassian rebels. The Dominion faces not one enemy, but a unified front that cannot be divided. The Dominion attempts to fracture this coalition repeatedly. In Tears of the Prophets, they assassinate Gowron's rival to destabilize the Klingon leadership. In Inter Arma Enim Silent Leges, they manipulate Romulan politics to prevent full commitment to the war effort. But the Federation holds the coalition together through diplomatic pressure, intelligence sharing, and strategic coordination. The Dominion has more ships. The Federation has more allies. Coalition building is a force multiplier that no fleet calculation can account for. The Federation does not need to match Dominion production. It needs to ensure that the Dominion faces enemies on multiple fronts simultaneously. The Klingons absorb losses in direct combat. The Romulans strike from cloak. The Federation coordinates logistics and rebuilds damaged ships. The Dominion is forced to fight 3 different wars with 3 different doctrines at the same time. This is the hidden mechanism. The Federation does not win through strength, it wins through aggregation. The Dominion controlled the Gamma Quadrant. The Borg assimilated thousands of species, but neither faction could eliminate the Federation. The Dominion tried, it failed. The Borg tried, they failed. The Federation does not win through superior firepower. It wins through superior resilience and superior diplomacy. It absorbs allies. It absorbs enemies. It rebuilds faster than it can be destroyed. The final ranking is not a list. It is a hierarchy of endurance. At the bottom are factions that depend on centralized control and cannot survive leadership failure. The Cardassian Union. The Klingon Empire under weak chancellors. The Romulan Star Empire when the Tal Shiar is compromised. In the middle are factions that have mastered deterrence but lack expansion capability. The Tholians, the Breen, the Gorn hegemony. These factions will never dominate the quadrant, but they will never be conquered. Near the top are factions with distributed power and economic resilience. The Federation, the Ferengi Alliance. These factions can lose and lose and lose and still function. At the top is the Dominion, but only when the founders are healthy and rational. The Dominion can field fleets faster than any other faction. It can replace losses instantly. It can wage war across multiple quadrants simultaneously. But it is entirely dependent on the Great Link. If the founders fall, the Dominion collapses. The Borg rank below the Dominion because they are reactive, not proactive. They are powerful in known scenarios. They are vulnerable to novel threats. They cannot innovate. They can only assimilate. This is a fatal flaw in a galaxy where new technologies and tactics are constantly emerging. The Federation ranks below the Borg in pure military capability, but above them in long-term structural endurance. The Federation can lose wars and rebuild. The Borg can lose drones and replace them. But the Federation can adapt its doctrine. The Borg cannot. The Federation can negotiate. The Borg cannot. The Federation can absorb former enemies. The Borg can only assimilate them. The truth is that power in Star Trek is not a scoreboard. It is a system. The factions that appear strongest are often the most fragile. The factions that appear weakest often endure the longest. Military strength is temporary. Economic resilience is permanent. Ideological cohesion is rare. Institutional flexibility is priceless. The galaxy is shaped not by who wins individual battles, but by who remains standing when the battles are over. The Federation remains. The Ferengi remain. The Breen remain. The Klingons fracture and reform. The Cardassians collapse. The Dominion retreats. The Borg adapt or die. The ranking is not about who has the most power. It is about who can sustain power under catastrophic pressure. The factions that rank highest are the ones that have optimized for survival, not spectacle. They are the ones that understand that influence persists even in apparent defeat. They are the ones that rebuild faster than they can be destroyed. The official story is that power is measured in ships, weapons, and territory. The real story is that power is measured in resilience, adaptability, and the ability to absorb loss without collapse. The factions that dominate the quadrant are not always the ones with the largest fleets. They are the ones whose systems can endure catastrophic failure and continue to function. This is the hidden mechanism inside Star Trek. The most visibly dominant factions are often the most fragile beneath the surface. The factions that survive are the ones that have built institutions capable of outlasting any single crisis. The galaxy belongs not to the strongest, but to the most persistent.